All right, so welcome into another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the From season finale, and this is going to be my review for what I think was an incredible episode. So yeah, let's just get into it and talk about it. So yeah, I think, okay, so this was my favorite episode of the season, and I think the season was my favorite season of the show. I may think differently about it, um, you know, in a few weeks or whatever, but right now I can say that this is my favorite episode of my favorite season. We had a lot, I didn't know how I'd feel without Jim being in this season because Jim was one of my favorite characters. He was, well, I guess I don't know that I'd say he's my favorite. He was one that I identified the most with as a father, because he was just trying to do the best he could for his kids. And when we first meet Jim, he had lost a child. Tabitha had lost a child, but I like I say, being a dad, I identified more with the most with Jim. Yeah, I said he was my favorite character. He was one of my favorite characters. I think my favorite character is probably Victor and then Boyd, or Victor then Kenny then Boyd. I guess it just depends on the day that you ask me, not that you did. But anyway, let's talk about this season finale. Okay. So before we get into it, if you haven't seen the episode, I don't know why you'd be watching this video yet, but there will be spoilers in this for the season finale. So if you haven't watched the episode yet, uh, pause the video and save it for later. Come back and watch it after you've watched what was really an amazing finale. Uh, Nothing really shocked me in it. I kind of predicted a lot of the stuff that was going to happen. It was a little bit different than exactly, but I kind of got the outcomes right. So yeah, let's just talk about it. When we start off, Jade and Tabitha are they're in the chamber right where we left off last episode, and they have the bones, and Jade reveals to Tabitha that he lied about the fact that the bones would protect them. I thought, I mean, he was convincing when he said that when they were with Donna. I believed him. I thought maybe he knew something that the rest of no one else could know, but it turns out he was just BSing. And now Tabitha's life is in danger because of the lie that he told. But he went into that hole not expecting to come out. And I believe in one of my videos earlier, I called Jade a coward, and I was wrong. Jade was anything but. He realized that this had to be done for everyone to have a chance to go home. I don't know if it's going to work out. It's clearly it hasn't yet, but they haven't got the bones out of there either. Anyway, and they don't know what to do with them when they get them out, if it's even going to work. But Jade went into it never expecting to come out. So yeah, they get the bones. The tree comes out of the ground. The ladder goes into the hole, and Tabitha starts up. Jade never even planned. He just planned to buy her time to get out of the hole. And then when it looked like when they realized that the monsters couldn't come into the light and that they were somewhat safe, they thought Jade was going to get out too. But the ladder broke. It gets dark. We don't know why. I guess it could be because the bottle tree came down. I feel like they should have listened to Victor, but if they hadn't listened to Victor, if they hadn't listened to Victor and they hadn't taken the tree down, the earthquake may not have happened. And the earthquake saved Tabitha and Jade many times this episode because it kept, we had the earthquake and then we had the tremors. Maybe they were aftershocks, I guess. But yeah, so it gets dark, the monsters start coming out, and our people have to leave the hole. Really, Boyd's just bravery and willing to do what he has to do to keep people alive really shocked me. He's always been a brave character, and I said nothing really shocked me, but this was the one point that Boyd was ready to go straight into that hole. He wanted to go down the chain, and knowing that there was nothing he could do. And sometimes I think Boyd acts a little bit without thinking because this place needs him, and he puts himself at risk a little too much, I think. But anyway, it didn't work out. They go back to town. We find that Smiley has gone in and killed Marielle, and he calls Fatima mom, which really makes me, I've been thinking about this for a while, and we'll talk about this theory later in another video, a little more in depth. But have all the people been there and come back? And the monsters Because when you think about it, if they're all coming back, they're all being reincarnated, they're all living forever. Are all these people the people that sacrifice? They're like sacrificed their children, and do they? Will they all turn into monsters? When they die, do they turn into something? I don't really know. When they die in Fromville, do they come back as a monster? I don't know. I don't know because, the monsters, they wear clothing from different times and just like weird choices in clothing. I mean, like think about the bride monster. You know, did someone come there in a bridal gown and get killed, and the monster took the clothes? It. I mean, I guess they do that to make them different from each other, so you can tell the difference in them. But you have the one that kind of, I call him the professor. He wears the vest and the glasses. But anyway, let's get back to this episode. So they go back to town. Christy finds out that Marielle's dead, and every actor that acts in this show is amazing. But oh my gosh, Christy had me crying. Just the sorrow and the shock. And I mean, there was nothing about her performance that wasn't award winning. And then later when Boyd comes in to comfort her, I mean, that was just great stuff, And I mean, there was more performances like that. Later when Ethan's crying, when the lightning's going on, and the people get back to Colony House, and his mom and Jade aren't with him, he breaks down, and he's terrified that everything that Victor said is going to happen, because they have no reason to believe their mom made it out, and she had promised him that she would protect him and that make sure that he wasn't alone like Victor said, and that they would go home. And now it's kind of like, as far as Ethan knows, they're not going to get out. So that performance by the actor that plays Ethan was amazing. Julie reassuring him was incredible. And just Donna Donna just stands in the background, and the look on her face, like she didn't say a word, but that performance was just as good as any performance we've seen in the show. We do see that Elgin was still alive at the beginning, from the end of the last episode. And I'm glad that they did not turn him into a villain again. I really liked that we find out that what he did with Fatima, he thought he was doing the right thing, and he didn't go down that path again. I'm glad they didn't turn him into a villain, and he stayed strong. He was terrified. That was another amazing performance. And in the face of Sophia, he just said a prayer, and then she held his hand to death. I mean, she did something to him and killed him. I guess she made his heart stop. We see the lightning come out of the hole in the ground and from the bottle tree. We don't know what that means yet. There was a brief storm where the clouds were red. There was red lightning, but it came from the ground. It came from the hole, and we don't know what that's gonna mean. I guess it's gonna be something in season 5, the final season. Victor, Scott McCord is another amazing actor. We see that Henry goes and gets Victor's gun from the sheriff's office, and he has 2 bullets. I guess he was going to shoot Victor and then shoot himself and think that he was going to wake up. But when Victor talked to him, and there was a brief second that I thought he was actually going to shoot Victor. And then when Ethan shows up, my heart stopped. I mean, I thought Ethan was dead. I thought Henry was accidentally going to shoot him. But Victor jumped up, smacked Henry down, and the gun goes flying. And Victor, he saved Ethan, I think, and he saved himself. And I don't know how that's what's going to happen with that going into the final season. I don't know if Victor will be able to forgive Henry. Henry was manipulated. Henry was played by the man in yellow, by Sophia. They don't know that, but I hope there can be some redemption and forgiveness for Henry, because I feel like Henry really is a good character. It really, he's a good character, but I feel like he's a good person too. The characters find out that Tabitha and Jade are still alive because they get a signal out using the radio, and right away Boyd's like, and we're going in. As soon as he had like verification that they were still there, and I thought it was neat that Acosta was like saying, "Hey, we can't give up." Even before they got the signal, she really stepped up, and I feel like I wanted her to find the picture of Sophia. Not that I wanted her to die, But I just kind of felt like the whole point of her looking for stuff was to find that. We get into the tunnel again with Jade and Tabitha. They're trying to dig their way out past a barrier, and we see Tabitha holding a skull, and she's able to, I think, identify the child that was hers and Jade's, and that was a touching moment. Then we get Boyd telling Ellis that he's going into the hole, and and I don't think he expects us to come out. That's just the character that Boyd is. Boyd's he expects to come out because he wants to save Tabitha and Jade, but he also understands that it's a good possibility that he may not. So he was saying goodbye, and that's when Ellis wants to go with him, and I was really scared for Ellis. I'm gonna be honest. When in that moment for like a few seconds, I was afraid for Ellis, and then Fatima says she's gonna go because she can sense them, and it was a good idea because her ability is a weapon, is a tool that they could use against the creature. So she goes, and they go into the cave, and she uses her ability to steer them around the monsters and get to Jade and Tabitha. Once again, Jade's willing to sacrifice himself to get Tabitha out, but it doesn't come to that. Boyd gets them out. He shoots the wooden barrier, and they're able to get through a hole, but it's too late because the monsters are there. And then we get the most heartbreaking reveal of the episode, and that is that Fatima did turn into a creature, and she holds them off by confronting the other monsters, screaming at the monsters, and it's so heartbreaking for Ellis to see that. That's where we leave off with them. We can just assume that Jade and Tabitha and Boyd and Ellis get out, but Ellis is, wow, Ellis is going to be brokenhearted for the rest of the time that we see him in the show. How's that going to impact him? I think I'll talk about that in another video. And then we end with Sophia and the boy in white, and they're walking through the woods, and it's almost like they confront each other every cycle. Sophia and Clara go around collecting all the talismans, just like I said, just like I thought they would, and they dump them into a faraway tree. We don't know where they're going. Maybe they're just resetting the talismans for like another group to find them. What's going to happen in this final season? Are our people going to go home, or are they all going to die? And is it going to be a new cycle? And, is Ethan going to be alone ultimately? What I kind of think is going to happen is Julie. I think she's going to story walk. Again, I'll talk about that in another video. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of my From videos, any of the ones that we're talking about coming up, anything that we're going to be doing a lot of talking about season 5 in the next week and a half. So yeah, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of my From videos, do the YouTube stuff, subscribe, and so you don't miss anything, comment. Let me know what you think about this final episode. And yeah, I guess I'm just going to leave it here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any hype, type the video, and I'll see you in the next one.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me, and what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me.